will discuss about the mobility package because we, and when I say we, it's Bulgaria and Romania, have a different situation than the other countries in the western side of the European Union. On what should we focus on, Mr. Vitanov?
Now, when the trialogue is ongoing, I think that all these logical arguments that we try to present for so many years now, they were just unheard. But now what is bothering most of the even Western countries, not from the periphery, but from this so-called old Europe, is that, and maybe one of the biggest issues, is the problem with the applicability of the EU legislation when it comes to non-European, non-EU countries, third countries, because this will be a huge problem.
Let's see exactly, Mr. Tarhash, what is the main problem, what are the concerns in Romania, Bulgaria, and some other states also in the Eastern European countries, actually.
Before I go into the specifics of what these packages contain, it's important for the people that are watching us today to understand a little bit what are we talking about here, you know, the mobility package, and what is the issue at hand. The idea initially, the foundation, I would say, or the idea that was the foundation of these packages, started from the concern that many people or many organizations in the Western Europe had about the drivers that came from Bulgaria or from Romania or from other Eastern European countries, and they were traveling and driving for a very long time in the western part of the European Union. So the idea was okay, but what happened, as exactly the former president of the United States, Ronald Reagan, said, two things you don't want to know how they are made: sausages and laws. So an idea that initially was okay was adding more crap to it, I would say, more stuff to it. And then they ended up as three packages, as we call them now, or they are labeled as mobility packages, that contain certain laws or certain articles that are pretty much damaging the business, the transportation business in Bulgaria, in Romania, in Hungary, in Poland, and in the Baltic countries. So one of the issue, one of such article, is the obligation, the mandatory obligation that every truck driver will bring the truck from whomever is in the European Union every month back to the country of origin. That will force hundreds of thousands of drivers to drive back from Western Europe to Eastern Europe, and as usually will happen, they will drive back empty. And as my colleague said, these packages right now are in trialogue. For those who are watching us today and they don't understand the term, this is the negotiation right now between the European Council, European Commission, and the European Parliament. And each side has an opinion which could be similar or close to similar, or an opposite opinion about how these or what these laws should state. And as far as this provision that is forcing all these trucks to move back or to be driven back from Western Europe to Eastern Europe, as I mentioned in one of our meetings, this is going to influence. The cost is going to increase the cost of all these goods that are transported right now across the European Union, and nevertheless is going to increase the pollution. I found out a report that was written by the European Commission, published in 2014, who stated that 25% of the drivers of the trucks right now that are driven on the roads of the European Union are, as they are called, empty runs. In other words, trucks that are driven empty across the European Union. If this legislation enters into force, more than 25%, you know, some are estimating between 35 to 40% of the trucks that will be driven in the European Union will be driven empty. This is going to increase cost, and this is going to increase pollution. So these are two issues that is concerning us in this case, you know, Bulgaria and Romania.
It's still time to modify all these things. We are still during the negotiations. We are still trying to find the best way for everyone, if possible.
Well, the opportunities are not very many. But honestly, my colleague was absolutely right. The whole idea behind the mobility package, let's be honest, is to take away the advantage of the Eastern European companies, of the Eastern European hauliers, and so that the Western can take back their own business. But the problem is that this is not going to happen. And when we say, is there a possibility to change everything? Yes, there is a possibility because, like I said in the very beginning, maybe I was not so clear, but we have a problem with the third countries, with the non-European countries, because what we will create not opportunity for the Western hauliers, but we will create the opportunity for the third countries to have better conditions to do business in the European Union, because I don't know, but there are two actually agreements between European Union and third countries and non-EU countries, and nobody can persuade me that this agreement can be changed. Okay, we will accept, this legislation will enter into force, but we will not be able to oblige these third countries to follow all these implemented measures, so that we will have the better conditions to perform business. And this is now realized by the Westerners. So this is my last maybe hope, is to take this problem into consideration and to find a better solution for each European hauliers.
It is very important to see who's gaining actually from this game.
I would rephrase that question, and I would say, who's losing?
We are losing.
Exactly.
It's very clear.
Because
But
if
it's
you look,
important to see who's gaining also in order to see who wants to make the game. Yeah.
In the short term, and if you look at the issue just at a small segment, who's gaining advantages out of these laws, I would say, that are still discussed right now, will be the companies from the Western Europe. Because if these legislations are going into force, they will pretty much kill the transportation business in Romania, in Bulgaria, and all the other Eastern European countries. So this is the short-term advantage will be for the transportation companies from Western Europe. But the question is, who's going to lose? And mainly it's going to use the entire economic business across the European Union. And here's the reason why. Right now in Eastern Europe, Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, Hungary, there are many small businesses that are creating subcomponents for the automotive industry, especially from Germany. Forcing all these trucks to come back every month from Germany, for example, to Romania, empty, somebody has to support that cost, and it will be the company. If the transportation company is going to support that cost, is going to eat up that cost, implicitly, they have to charge more for the transportation. By charging more for these subcomponents to be moved from Eastern Europe to Western Europe, implicitly they will have to charge more the automotive company. At the end of the day, the cars, I would say, that will be built in Eastern Europe, in European Union, will be more expensive. And here's the second argument. Right now on the global market, you have cars that are built in US and cars that are built in the European Union. Euro is stronger than the dollar. You have China right now, which is playing with its currency. You see the debate, the war that is going on between Trump and China on this issue. So this is exactly the question that I raised in the Transportation Committee, and nobody could answer that to me. And I said, if we are forcing these automotive companies, especially from Germany, to build more expensive cars that will be sold on the global market, in smaller numbers, how are we going to help the economy? The second issue is the pollution. Everybody's talking now. You have the Green Deal. We'll have a commissioner which is going to be dealing with the issue of pollution. How are we going to help the environment if we force these trucks to go back empty in their country of origin? As I said, if 25% of the trucks right now are running empty in the European Union, up to 40% will be running empty if these laws are entered into force. So it's important in this argument to look not only at who's gaining, but especially who's losing if these laws are entering into force, and then at the end of the day, all of us will be losing.
Let's try to find solutions, and thank you so much, Mr. Terhes, for your presence. Let's try to find solutions to these situations.
But let me add something.
Please.
Those who are going to lose are the European citizens, no doubt about it.
All of us, actually, yeah.
All of us, because we have to pay higher price for this service. And of course, we will breathe dirty air. Let's be correct, because there was a study in Bulgaria prepared by KPMG, which said that there will be 53% increase of empty runs, the one that Mr. Teres was talking. And so the pollution will increase, and we are trying, especially when we represent the Social Democrats, and you know how important for Social Democrats is so-called New Green Deal. And nobody is hearing our logical arguments. But like I said in the very beginning, it was just made to give competitive advantage of the Western hauliers. That was the main idea behind the mobility package. But now we are creating monster, because in the long term, they are not going to win. Actually, like I said, the hauliers from Ukraine, from Turkey, from Belarus, those are hauliers that will have disadvantage after we adopt this legislation. So what is my expectation is just to be heard, those arguments to be heard, so that, look, we are changing the core idea of the foundation of the European Union, because we are talking about the free movement. And now we are obliged to return the driver and obliged to return the truck itself. This is so far away from the free movement of goods, services, people, and so on and so forth.
But is there a good explanation behind this idea of trying to return them to their countries, even though they might go as empty trucks? Do the Western countries, do those who are sustaining this idea, have a good explanation for us?
Honestly, I couldn't hear a normal explanation, because, and if for some reason this legislation is adopted, we will challenge this in court, because this is in contrary of the...
I've seen that in Bulgaria you're preparing something like this, yeah.
It's of course too early, but then, like I said in the very beginning, it's definitely just, this is opposing the whole idea of the free movement. You cannot oblige anyone from the European Union to go there or to take his rest to a certain place. He must have the free will to do so. And this is the idea of the European Union. So the explanation was, we are trying to, to decrease the influence of the so-called post-box companies. But this is not the right tool to do so.
What solutions do we actually have in order to modify this whole package?
I think that certain compromises must be done. And there is some way in between, in the middle, so that all the countries could be satisfied. Some of those measures must fall, definitely, no doubt about this, and that they will fall. The return of the empty trucks, the return of the trucks every 4 weeks is one of the measures. The mandatory return of the driver to the country of establishment or the country of registration, this also will have to fall. We will try to increase the number of operation, the cross-strait operation, and if some of those measures are adopted, I think that we will be able to find the balance. And of course, like I said at the very beginning, we have to guarantee that the European hauliers, the hauliers of the European Union, will not be in a worse position than the third country hauliers, which is, for now, the Commission cannot guarantee it. They said you have to do it via bilateral agreements, but you know how difficult it is to change a certain bilateral agreement.
We've seen a new parliament actually here in Brussels. It's completely changed as compared to the one that actually discussed this whole package. We've seen a new commission that is it's coming to look at this package. So do you consider that it might be a chance in the new trialogue to see some other positions?
In the very beginning, I was way more optimistic. Mm-hmm. But this is mathematics and arithmetics, and you cannot change it. You cannot change it in the European Parliament. Now the majority of majority of my colleagues in the Transportation Committee, they want this legislation to be adopted as soon as possible. But hopefully, I expect certain voices from the Council, and of course, we have some good hopes when it comes to the new Commissioner from Romania, to try to find a more balanced position, because honestly, this is a very discriminative way to create competitive advantages and respectively disadvantages.
What are the drivers saying to you? I know that you've discussed with them.
As you probably know, in Bulgaria, this haulier business is very big, and transportation gives almost 17% of the GDP. So this is a huge issue in Bulgaria, huge problem. And of course, we are in constant contact with our hauliers, which provide us with this data that I try to present here. And maybe it was not well accepted here, but when I ask, okay, if my data is wrong, give me something to persuade my own hauliers at home that you are adopting the right measures, and nobody is giving me anything. Of course, there is no such data because they know what the damage would be. They just want to hide it. So they are very concerned because most of them will lose their job. And when I mentioned this study, more than 40,000 Bulgarians will lose their jobs if this legislation is adopted, because
A huge impact in your
huge
country.
impact, because 75% of the Bulgarian hauliers, and maybe in Romania is pretty much the same, are companies with up to 4 or 5 vehicles. This is a family, small family companies. You know, 2 sons are driving the trucks. So they are going to lose their job because they will not be able to adapt to the new conditions because they don't have the resource to do so. Of course, the biggest Bulgarian hauliers, of course, they will survive. They will re-register in Germany or in France or in Spain, and they will survive. But unfortunately, the small and medium enterprises will bankrupt. And I'm positive that the impact will be absolutely the same in Romania. And that's why we are trying to fight with all our efforts, and we are united on this issue, because we are all considering that this legislation is very, very discriminative.
How can you actually move things over here, having the minority, not the majority, and also knowing exactly that the others are going to win in terms of money, in terms of economy? What's your core argument, actually?
Now, like I said, when we're talking about pollution, we remain unheard. When we are talking about that this legislation is in contrary with the idea of the European Union, we remain unheard. But now, when we talk about third country, the Westerns are concerned, because if they adopt this legislation, Western countries in the Western hauliers in the long term, they will lose. Because, like I said, the European Union's market, transport market, will be flooded by Turkish or by Russian or by Ukrainian or by Belarusian hauliers, and they cannot do anything to stop it. And first, and then on the other hand, for instance, Bulgarian drivers, they will go there and they will create another migrants wave there. So they will go to their countries, and they will try, and they will, of course, use their social systems. So in the long term, they will lose. So hopefully I expect them to realize that adopting this legislation in such a manner is not a good idea for them.
You're preparing in Bulgaria to take action to the EU Court of Justice, you've said.
Of course, we will use all the instruments that we have left, because, like I said, we have no majority here in the Council. The position is, to some of the measures,
pretty split. Yeah.
Pretty split, of course. We expect the new commissioner to provide this balance, but of course, if necessary, we will challenge all these measures into court, because, like I said, there is no way to oblige anyone from the European Union to go to certain direction.
Thank you so much for your comments and for your presence. We will discuss about this issue in another talk show here at BU. Thank you so much for your presence.
Thank you for